Oh no! 183 million passwords were leaked. Check if that Gmail account is compromised. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think I say it enough. I actually really despise sites like Forbes. So a day or two ago, I got a bunch of like sort of comments, emails, messages about, oh my God, Muda, did you know about that big old Google breach? There's like 183 million accounts that actually ended up getting leaked. Now, of course, 183 million is huge, right? That's like what? Almost half the population of the United States of America, maybe even more than half? I mean, that's crazy. But is it actually real? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that no, you're being sent misinformation by Misinfo Mary. I'm not a fan of it, okay? I really don't like a lot of these news sites pushing this kind of filth, even though we've talked about this literally a couple months ago. So what is actually the truth of this situation? Have 183 million accounts been leaked? Yes, actually, yes, that is true. There's a kernel of truth in this story that I'm going to focus on, but I'm going to ignore the fact that Google has been hacked or breached. Look, breaches happen all the time, okay? Goatsies occur to anybody. You know, I looked at things like the Twitch breach. I looked at things like the 23andMe breach, you know, where you had allegations that, you know, a bunch of these people, you know, they were giving out their they were giving out their genetic ancestry, okay? That was getting leaked. It was crazy stuff. But of course, to give you an idea of what's been going on over here, this is basically an amalgamation of like 100 leaks and put into one. So the TLDR is actually from the guys over at Google. There were these crazy reports. And even Google's like, look, Gmail defenses are strong and you are protected. So of course, they basically say that a lot of this comes from misunderstanding from info-stealer databases, which routinely compile various credential theft activity occurring across the web. Users can protect themselves by turning on two-step verification and getting actual passkeys. So if you're actually really scared about this, guys, it is the year of the Lord 2025. Just get a fucking password manager. Get yourself, put on two-factor authentication, okay? Like, just do the basics, and you'll be fine. It's one of the reasons why I haven't had, like, a heart palpitation about any of this shit since the goddamn, like, Obama administration. Now, if you ever want to see if your account has been hacked, you can go to a site called Have I Been Pwned. Throw in your email address, and it'll tell you, whoa, buddy, you've been privy to 21 breaches. Now, in this case, you'll see that the breaches I'm privy to are things like Earth 2, October 2024. Remember that scam of a game where you could buy Earth real estate in the metaverse? Yeah, it turns out email addresses and usernames were compromised in it. But sometimes a data breach can get more insane. So for instance, in things like Club Penguin Rewritten, which was a private server for Club Penguin, this actual data breach revolved email addresses, IPs, but more importantly, passwords. So if you're somebody that used your password, you know, if you use the same password of like 30 sites, and for instance, Club Penguin was a site you used, remember, it's like having sex with like multiple people, right? Like, you know, if you have sex with one person, apparently you have sex with everyone. And if you just have one password, well, if Club Penguin gets breached, the other 29 websites also get breached. So that's kind of the gist of it. Now, to give you guys an idea about how these hacks occur, I wanted to show you guys in real time. I feel like I don't really do that enough, and I want to kind of go back to showing you the visual style of what happens when somebody hacks you. So for instance, this is a attack virtual machine that I have set up. Now, the attack virtual machine in this situation, ladies and gentlemen, has used a remote access Trojan software. So for instance, it builds a server, it builds actual malware, and in this case, it built a malware known as test. Now in this case, I used this test malware, this exe file, and I sent it over to a victim computer. So victim Vince has been infected by infector Ian, okay? So infector Ian sends the file over to victim Vince. Now victim Vince could have downloaded this file through a fucking email, he could have got it through Discord, he could have downloaded it through a YouTube description, which we'll get to in a bit. Yeah, anyways, he has his file sitting on his computer, he runs test file, and then bam, Lord, he has been completely fucking hijacked. Now, if you're ever wondering how people hack your systems, they sometimes use remote access Trojan tools. And the tool that I'm showing you is something from like 8 years ago. So the reason I'm showing you something so old is because I want you to understand the concepts, and I want you to be able to grab this stuff and use it against people, okay? That would be a no-no. That would be unethical. Again, this kind of a malware has already been stopped pretty much by, I don't know, fucking every single antivirus software out there. So for instance, on the victim computer, I'm going to open up Edge, right? So this is what, somebody's doing. Maybe they'll type in, I don't know, google.com. Maybe they'll look up, I don't know, Battlefield 6 or something, right? So they're browsing the internet, yada, 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 yada. Now, of course, Infector Ian decides, I want to do a little surveillance on them, so let me fire up a remote desktop. So at this moment in time, you fire up the remote desktop, you stream what they're actually seeing. So again, since you're doing surveillance, you can also grab other things from their system too. You can also look into their webcams if they had one connected. And let's say they were watching pornography, well, ladies and gentlemen, you can screen record that to your heart's content. And you can actually screen record somebody busting a nut to whatever pornography, which is where a lot of that sextortion stuff comes from, where children are unfortunately targeted on the internet because of hackers who do sick shit like this. So again, don't just run anything randomly on your system, okay? These are small files, usually attached to larger files for disguising, and they can get away with some nasty shit. Now, of course, inside this remote access Trojan tool, you can explore, obviously, the file system of the target, so you can see exactly what's in their system. This is a pretty virgin device, so you don't necessarily have to worry too much about what's in there. Of course, there's also the ability for you to download, files to the actual system, and of course, this can be used for further persistence, further, infections, so to speak. And you can also look up the processes on the actual attacking system too. And now when it comes to things like keyloggers, right, sometimes these systems come with keyloggers built in. So you can actually view a live keylogger. So for instance, a live keylogger that I started monitoring on the attacker system over here, immediately you can see that when it comes to the victim, without them really knowing, their actual prompts are being written into this person. So let's say this person goes to, I don't know, youtube.com, for instance, right? And in youtube.com, they want to log into their site. Actually, this is one of the oldest accounts that I have that I don't know the password to. But let's say that I wanted to type in a password. Well, inside this field that is hidden, obviously in the actual, keylogger, it is completely unfiltered and available. And so this person can then save this log and keep this record on the user. Now, obviously, this is all complete malware. So to give you an understanding, ladies and gentlemen, you should not be playing around with this, even in a virtual machine. Remember, again, if you don't know what the fuck you're doing, don't play around with computer viruses. So anyways, now that I've kind of shown you what this stuff sort of does, I want to actually focus back onto that data breach. So using some of these tools that I showed you, this is how hackers also grab, and this is a more granular way to hack into people's systems, right? To hack into a specific person. But again, you can basically make an unlimited list of people that you infect with these tools, and you can do God knows what. Now, when it comes to info stealer malware, this is stuff that's been around forever. What I showed you was kind of an early variant of this technology. So if you go to a lot of these hacker forums, for instance, they'll sell you tools like Lumma, Redline, Vidar. All of these have one thing in common: unreliability. So these people are billing their own actual tool. And of course, they mention things like full credential harvesting. So they exploit actual security measures on the popular browsers in the world and grab Discord tokens, Roblox cookies, Unreal FUD stub sizes, advanced anal loop harvesting. Obviously, some of these are a little jokey, if you will, too. But understandably, they grab information, they download it from users' computers once they're infected, and they send it to a command server for these people to effectively start cataloging and putting into these big databases. So again, looking at guys like Cynthian to have actually shown how some of this stuff works, they advertise not just on these hacker forums, but they've also advertised pretty much available to anybody on Telegram, for instance, right? Where these people sell this as a service. So a lot of people now can hack people, through, again, easily accessible methods. Sometimes it can cost as little as $60 a week, which if you consider how much money you can steal, it's kind of not a bad investment. Not that I'm promoting it or anything. That is wrong. This is very illegal to do. So of course, inside a lot of these tools, you'll notice that everyone kind of formats things differently. So in these leaks, you'll see that there's email, passwords, URL logins, and passwords. And so in this breach that people were looking at, like Forbes, if they even had access to it. These breaches consisted of not just Gmail accounts, but Outlook, every popular service imaginable. Gmail is one of the most popular mail services, so there's a good chance it's going to be in there. So basically, what's kind of been going on for the last few months, really, is that a lot of these hackers are sort of like taking old databases that have been grabbed by these tools and just stuffing them into a big database to make it look like a bigger hack than it actually is. Because ultimately, when you actually look at the database and the sample provided, some of the stuff can be super old, some of the stuff can be duplicates, and sometimes there's information that, is just like, sometimes there could just be entire cells that exist inside here with information that isn't even valid to begin with, and it just is there so that they can make the attack look bigger than it actually is. Because the ultimate end goal is to take all this database and then sell it for a large amount of Bitcoin on the internet to some gullible rube out there. Now, it's not to say that hacks aren't available. They obviously are. You can download some of these Lumma stealer malwares. And just for educational purposes, I think I'm going to show you what it looks like when you run this kind of shit on your system. Now, obviously, inside my system, I have what is a Lumma stealer sample. And of course, the moment I run it, you'll notice that, whoa, there's something crazy that popped up on Muda's screen there for half a second. What could that have been? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is when you know you are effectively fucked, right? When you run that shady, cracked game that you fucking found on the high seas, and you see that for a second, sometimes it can be that. Now, provided if the C2 server is still active when it comes to this malware, which very much could be because it's only a few days old, the sample, that would mean that whatever sensitive is sitting inside this system, credential-wise, whatever it's looking for, is being grabbed and sent off. So at that moment in time, now this computer is part of of a big database. Okay, we made it, boys. Pretty much what it is. So yeah, that's kind of how this infection sort of works. Now, obviously, I'm going to kill this virtual machine. Yes, virtual machines have been harmed in the making of this video. But that's just par for the course when you're on the Some Ordinary Gamers channel. So when it comes to this hack, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of this is mostly just misinformation. And unfortunately, it sucks because Google has to go out and effectively jump in and straight up tell you guys that, guys, you're being misled by the fucking Daily Mail of all places, right? Like, unironically, the biggest gossip rag in the entire world at this point. So, what is a real issue on YouTube? For those of you who don't know, there's a massive issue on YouTube. They call it the YouTube Ghost Network. And it doesn't have anything to do with being spooky. It's actually a network where a bunch of bad actors are working together to spread malware on the internet. So, for instance, to show you how wild things have gotten over here, this is a video that I found within one simple Google search, right? So for example, if I go to YouTube and I look up Battlefield 6 hack download, I'm pretty sure there are people that go and look for hacks to download on the internet. So again, Battlefield 6 is a popular game, but immediately right over here you can see that, there are people sharing how to download Battlefield 6 cheats. So this one video right over here has a download link provided. So again, I'm going to blur the download link, but this download link, I'm going to download it and I'm going to show you exactly what's going on here. So in this case, obviously, I go to their website, I download Human Pro, for instance, right over here, and it gives you a little download. So you go to their website, you'll download this pile of dog shit software. And again, this is most definitely, if I had to hazard a guess, complete malware. But again, it's only a megabyte large. So to show you what's kind of going on over here, we'll download it, we'll actually extract it and see what's going on. All right, so right-click this, show more options, 7-zip, open archive. I don't know why any human being would use anything other than 7-zip. WinRAR is not a good solution, so we'll extract that right over here. And of course, obviously, when we open it up, it's another folder to extract, so open that up with 7-zip. All right, drag that shit right here. And what's the password? 4545? Sure, let's drop that bitch in. So, of course, this is Human Pro, Human. So of course, the moment we start this up, you'll probably notice that nothing is really happening, Muda. In fact, if anything, it's a pretty quiet little file. And yeah, of course, nothing is going to happen because no, these aren't Battlefield hacks that you've been given. You literally just got hacked. The YouTubers that are like, man, why did fucking my channel get hacked? Well, you clicked on a sponsorship deal and you clicked a PDF file that contained malware. What could this file actually be? Well, it's not difficult to go to virustotal.com, drag that bitch right in here, and figure out what's going on. And what's really funny about this is they make the file like 800 megabytes, even though I'm pretty sure it's not actually 800 megabytes. It's just that size to make it look as if it's not, you know, to not throw it into VirusTotal, so to speak. But that's not the end of the world, because when you've got garbage data, in this case, you can just, you can basically add this to an archive and just sort of drop it in. So we'll add it to an archive again. We'll compress it like normal human beings. The actual file being literally 1.59 megabytes, because there's nothing in this file worth having. We'll drop that into VirusTotal and have it unpack there. Now, of course, according to the old VirusTotal, one of the things I got hit was something known as Trojan Darkgate A. Now, Trojan Darkgate A, for anybody that doesn't know, is a malware infection. It's basically been around since 2018, but it goes through Microsoft Teams, phishing links, malvertising campaigns, which is exactly how we got hit. And yeah, it's basically the same thing that I showed you towards the beginning of this video, where again, some asshole infected me, and now they're looking through everything in this virtual machine. So for the hacker right over here who's fired up his little machine, I'm just going to leave them a little message. Go fuck yourself. And of course, we'll blow that up a little bit. Make it look good old-fashioned YouTube 2008 in a way. So of course, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to nuke this virtual machine out of orbit, simply because that is the right thing to do. Again, not just one virtual machine, but several were harmed in this video. That being said, though, ladies and gentlemen, this is a huge problem that I think, you know, instead of focusing on the 183 million fucking passwords that have been hit, there are some serious issues. And those serious issues lie with actual, like, real malicious actors that go beyond just this info stealer stuff. Again, this is the kind of stuff that's been happening on YouTube, happening on Google, happening everywhere. And it's one of the reasons why, you know, you hear me talk about get ad block, get a lot of these things, because, you know, these people use a lot of vectors to attack the innocent person out there. And ultimately, the best advice that I can give you is always be vigilant on the internet. Don't just download and run anything that you don't trust. I mean, that's just basic common sense. But honestly, you'd be surprised how much common sense saves your ass when it comes to keeping yourself safe on the internet. But ladies and gentlemen, yeah. Is the misinformation true? I mean, it sounds interesting. It's a cool headline, I'm pretty sure. Great for a YouTube title. But reality is often far less, I guess, explosive than what these clickbait articles will tell you. But yeah, hopefully you learned how a lot of these hacks work. Hopefully you actually enjoyed seeing from the hacker's perspective on what it looks like when the hacker hits you. But yeah, let me know in the comment section below. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it, I am out.